Okay, part 2 of our walk from Worcester to Birmingham kicks off at Hanbury Junction, then follows the canal as it meanders through quiet Worcestershire countryside, passing Stoke Works, and then along the UK's longest continuous flight of 30 locks. There's some unusual and unique features to take notice of along the way. For example, these large numbered concrete blocks on some bridges and locks, thought to have been put in place when they were repaired or rebuilt. This is a blocking hook found on the offside of a lock. With a rope attached to it from a boat, it created a pulley system that made it easier for a horse to haul the boat out of the lock. By wrapping a short strap around the strapping post, a boatman could more easily shut the lock gate, and these handles at the end of the balance beam are another unusual feature. Also in the 1880s, tail ground paddles were replaced by gate paddles with gearing mounted on an iron stand on top of the gate, a design that's unique to the Worcester and Birmingham Canal. At Hanbury Junction there's a convenient bench from which you can observe passing boats. Good Times is turning sharply from the Droitwich Junction Canal and heading towards Worcester. Towpath continues to be unexceptional, unless you have an interest in landfill sites or items that should be in a landfill. There's an occasional lonesome fisherman, but more dangerous are the joggers. And electric bikers. With the Droitwich radio transmitter at Wychbold in view, you embark on the Aswood flight of 6 locks, where So Might It Be is being bowhauled out of the bottom lock. At Lock 18 there's a particularly attractive cottage and garden. With a number of dwarfs wishing you a cheery hello. You can still see the transmitter behind this distinctive white building. It's been entertaining long-wave listeners since 1934. but to the disappointment of Radio 4 devotees, not for very much longer. A little further on, a hire boat bangs and scrapes its way into Aswood Top Lock 22. And not a clue, that's a sailing term spelt C-L-E-W, leaves the top lock. Commonly referred to as Stoke Prior, the area that you approach through this attractive avenue of trees is really Stoke Works, and its industrial past resulted from the discovery of a large deposit of rock salt in the early 1800s. You pass the boat and railway, which has hardly changed since the 1820s. And another dwarf, or is it an elf, bids you a fond farewell. This is John Corbett, known as the Salt King, who transformed the area and made a fortune by buying up the failing local salt works in 1853 and industrialising production, with brine brought up by steam power from deep boreholes and then evaporated. Both sides of the canal became dominated by the salt works, and transferring his business to the Birmingham and Gloucester Railway led in no small way to the waterway becoming bankrupt in 1868. A philanthropist as well as industrialist and MP, Corbett sold the salt works in 1888 and left behind workers' cottages, a school, chapel, even almshouses for, I quote, decayed salt workers. Salt extraction ended in the mid-20th century. The site was then used by ICI for latex production, eventually closing in 1972 to be redeveloped as an industrial estate on one side and identikit housing on the towpath side. As you leave Stoke Works, the outlook remains resolutely urban. Bridge House overlooking Bridge 44 is late 19th century and built for the engineer responsible for both the Worcester and Birmingham and Droitwich canals. From 1816 until 1911, when Tardebigge took over in importance, the canal's extensive maintenance works was located behind this intriguingly shaped building. Along Hanbury Road is Navigation Road, built in 1849 for lockkeepers and other workers, and then you get to the Navigation pub. Back at the bridge, Black Prince operate a holiday fleet from Stoke Wharf. A little further on, Dark Star is seen leaving Stoke Prior Lock 24. These workers' cottages stand just before Lock 27. One of them would have been occupied by the lockkeeper, responsible for locks 23 to 28. This boater is in such a hurry to get to the pub that is reversing through top Lock 28 with the help of a vlockie. And here's Warrior's destination, the Queen's Head, which was originally 2 cottages, a shop and a forge. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough paint left to insert an apostrophe. At Tardebigge Bottom Lock you embark on a flight of 30 locks, during which the canal climbs 220 feet over 2¼ miles. Luckily for boaters, an original proposal for over 70 locks wasn't adopted. A busy sunny day, and after Fairweather's Folly leaves the bottom lock, she is quickly replaced by Callista. Further on, summertime enters lock 35. The locks keep on coming. All of them have a single gate at the head and 2 at the tail, and Miles and Smiles decides to moor at lock 37 to have a rest before continuing. Excess water is diverted into culverts, such as this one near a typical lock cottage. And they naturally need to be regularly cleaned out. Is Malat, built by Canal Transport Services, leaving lock 41. And she is immediately replaced by Heckler. All this activity is under the gaze of C&RT, who are enjoying the sunshine near the former halfway wharf, where building materials were traded until 1924. Adjacent to the canal, near lock 43, the halfway house was, for over 100 years, a popular haunt for boatmen who were halfway between Worcester and Birmingham. It had stables and direct access to the towpath, but has been a private residence since the 1960s. Eventually this embankment comes into view. Climb to the top and you can admire how far you've come. And where you'll go next after Tardebigge Reservoir. Originally a clay pit and authorised in 1808, the reservoir was constructed between 1822 and 23 and covers 25 acres. Deepened in 1824 and 1826, it holds approximately 5,000 lots of water. Back on the towpath, Angelo is seen leaving lock 52 rather slowly as there's a boat occupying lock 51. Next to the reservoir lock cottage, which was once the home of the canal's foreman carpenter, is this ancient sluice. You reach lock 57 where this boat is waving goodbye to the red brick Tardebigge engine house, which dates from 1823. The canal summit is annoyingly about 50 feet above the reservoir, so a steam engine built at the Horsley Ironworks in Tipton was employed here until 1915 to pump water up to the Birmingham level. Following life as a nightclub, the building now contains apartments. Next up is a milestone dedicated to canal historian Alan White, which also tells you it's only 14 miles to Birmingham. Twitchers will be excited by the sight of all these bird boxes. Overlooked by the 135-foot tower of St Bartholomew's, you reach Tardebigge Top Lock. One of the deepest on the system at 11 feet, boaters are relieved to hear that after climbing over 400 feet from Worcester, there's no more locks until Gas Street Basin. It was at the top lock that a perpendicular lift was built and tested in 1809. It was designed to substantially lessen water use, the number of locks and speed up traffic. The engineer in charge, John Woodhouse, reckoned that 17 lifts would be needed on the way to Worcester. 72 feet long, they would accommodate 6 boats per hour, with 3 going each way. The canal company thought it wouldn't stand up to the rigours of canal life. Constant maintenance would slow down traffic, and it would be too expensive to operate. Commemorated by a red plaque, the idea was abandoned and the top lock rig taken apart in 1814. What really did slow down traffic was closing the top lock in 2025 for 5 months when boats started to become wedged in it. Major repairs, including removing thousands of bricks by hand and conserving original materials, were needed before the lock could be reopened. Near to the lock is a plaque that commemorates Robert Aikman meeting LTC Rolt here in 1945, after he'd read Rolt's book, Narrowboat, which focused on the canal system's uncertain future. Unfortunately, the date on the plaque is wrong, and a further one corrects it. The result of their discussion was the Inland Waterways Association, which over subsequent years has played an important role in reviving the country's canal heritage. As this is the end of part 2 of the walk, why don't you take a well-earned rest on a bench that's dedicated to the 50th anniversary of their meeting. Check out my other walks along the Oxford and Stratford canals, Grand Union Canal and Birmingham Canal navigations. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon on another towpath.